Good morning. Welcome to our first official interview here on the Goodfellow Podcast. Today, we're honored to be able to interview a man who has almost 40 years of hands-on mafia experience, half of which working as an undercover FBI informant. He has experiences, stories, and insights that very few people can say that they've had. Without further ado, I give you none other than Mr. Joseph Barone himself. Welcome to the show, Joe. How you doing today?
Hey, great. Thank you. Congratulations on the first show, and thank you for having me as your first guest.
Thank you very much. We're honored to have you here.
Thank you.
Why don't we start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? That sort of thing.
So, obviously, it's Joe Barone. I was born and raised in a town called New Rochelle, New York, which is a Westchester kind of a town. About 15 minutes from the Bronx, 25, 30 minutes from New York City. So, it's in that location right there. Obviously, I grew up in there in that town, which I grew up around a lot of people, a lot of wise guys, a lot of good guys, a lot of tough guys, a
Tell
lot
us
of
about
funny
that.
guys.
Tell us about your early upbringing and kind of the type of guys you grew up around, and what kind of life experiences early on may have influenced your eventual involvement with the mafia.
Well, I guess it was my father because he was around a long time. My father, believe it or not, started off as a hairdresser. They call them beauticians. Now they just say hairdresser or barber or whatever. My father owned his own place with another couple of partners, and matter of fact, they were in a town called Larchmont, New York, which is near New Rochelle. So his place was the name of his place was called Crescendi's. It was voted the most popular place in the '60s back then, and I used to work there as a kid, pushing the broom, uh, sweeping up the hair and stuff, and I'd have a hamburger in the back of my dad's. I was like, I don't know, 3 years old, 4 years old, whatever I was. So, but my father used to do things on the side, like he used to loan money, and he was always looking to make a dollar somewhere somehow.
Right.
But he got a little sick and tired of the hairdressing business, and then he was around guys. He was around my uncle, which he's actually really my cousin, but he's my uncle. His name was Pat Patty. He passed away, so that's why I'm mentioning his name. And I used to hang around with his son George. They had number stores, and so that's how my father got started. He was wild in the street, my father, and so my grandfather, his dad, asked my uncle Pat to take him under his wing because they didn't know what he was going to do. He was just wild. He was,
Right.
crazy. But so we did. Showed him the ropes. Showed him the how to loan the money. Showed him about the card games. All of this stuff that a wise guy starts off with knowing. And so my father got started, almost like I did in a way, and I'll tell you about that down the road. But yeah, he started. My father. There was one story where there was a card game, and they got followed. They were going to get robbed. So my father was a good driver, as I took after him in that respect too. And so they were on the Cross County Parkway, and somehow he did some maneuver, and the other guys crashed, and they got away. So it was pretty cool. My cousin George showed me the whole route that they took, and he actually passed away too a few years ago. But another story he did, my uncle told him to go collect money, and was kind of funny was my father. They told my father, "Don't take no for an answer." So my father almost killed him. They put him in the hospital. My uncle said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "But you told me not to take no for an answer." So that's how I was exposed to the life in the beginning. I guess that's the answer
So
to your
your
question.
father was your first exposure.
Yes. Believe it or not, I used to love the James Cagney movies and all of that kind of stuff too, and that was really good stuff to me back then. So little things like that. That was long before The Godfather and all of those movies came out. But yeah, that's how I was exposed. My father would also bring me to the clubs that he hung around with. I learned how to shoot pool like as a little kid. They show you. You eat with them sausages and peppers or the eggplants and all of that
I
stuff.
bet there's
Whatever
a
they
lot of
make.
good food, huh?
Oh my God, the food was. You talk about these guys, and the food seemed like it was better back then too. I mean, so I used to walk into the club. I was a little kid. They said, "Hey, who do you got there, Joe? Is that your bodyguard?" And that kind of stuff. And it was you felt warm up with these guys because they make you feel comfortable. They make you feel like you're part of something, even when you're a
family.
little kid. Exactly. It's like a family.
So what was the actual specific circumstance or event that led you to join officially?
Well, I wasn't really gonna do anything like that. I mean, I'm gonna say some things that might make me sound bad, but believe it or not, I used to be like what they back in those days used to call a pothead. I was a little kind of long hair, and I was just coasting through life because my father was in prison when I was growing up in those '70s, and I wasn't looking to do anything like that. It was just like almost a normal kid. I mean, everybody knew who my father was, and we made up stories that he was a truck driver or he worked construction or something like that. But we all knew. But I didn't know the extent of it.
Well, you're not allowed to tell the family in that life, right?
Exactly, yeah. So he used to say to me, if anybody asks you what I do for a living, you tell them I'm a truck driver. But he was hijacking trucks, so I guess he really was a truck driver. So, you know,
I got you.
but it was when I became like about a teenager. I was working because I actually, believe it or not, I was going to be a postman. I passed the test with flying colors, pretty high, but I was I was working at a job. I think it was in a Buick place, and I was driving a piece of junk car, whatever, and so I saved up. I think it was like $1,000, and of course, the first thing I wanted to do was get a better car.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the car I was driving had 4 different tires on it. So I know it sounds kind of funny. Yeah, I couldn't take current turns that quick, and
Oh my
sometimes it was
gosh.
bouncing a little bit, but I had to get back and forth to work. It was a
gotta do
hand me
what you gotta
down.
do.
That's right. It was a hand me down, but I took it.
I hear you.
So he said to me, he says, "Come here," and he says, "You want that money to make money for you?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "All right, give it to me." So he took it. I gave it to him. I didn't even ask him any questions. So then later on, he told me what he did, and then he taught me how to start loan sharking, and that's how I got started. Believe it or not. And then of course, some people didn't pay my father, and then as I was older, I hung around with a group from New Rochelle. We used to call each other. We were from Third Street, which was up in the west end of New Rochelle. We were like the Third Street boys. We had shirts. We had everything. It was about maybe 20 of us strong, maybe give or take a few, probably maybe more, but there was about 20 of us strong, and so I was able to go help my father collect money for him, and
So that's how you got started.
exactly right. No one's gonna mess with my father, or, like your father. You're the son. You're gonna stick up for your dad. You
Right.
know.
And you have the protection of being the son.
Exactly, and then I had my guys behind me, and they were Third Street boys. They were a lot of the guys. They were real good. We lost a dear friend of ours, and I couldn't even go to the funeral because of my situation. Paulie Saracelli, one of the nicest guys you're ever gonna meet. A good guy, stand up guy, good with his hands. Got into the music entertainment, made shows for all of the town. The way he died was horrible, and I missed the fact that I couldn't go to his funeral.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, how did you rise through the ranks within the organization throughout the years? Was it a slow rise? Did you hit benchmarks, or have sit downs where you gained a lot of progression at once? How did it go?
That's a that's exactly almost how it is. You start off slow, depending on who you're around. Like when I was younger, actually like about 12 years old, before my father went away on one of his longest bids he ever did, in the '70s. He had a place called I'm trying to think what the name of the restaurant it was. But he was partners with the guys, and there was all the wise guys who would come in. And I was a kid. I served them coffee, and they remembered, they knew I was his son, and they gave me a tip. And
Right.
I mean, let me tell you something. You get $1 back in the '70s. You're 12 years old. It's a lot of money. So it was a good little place, like a delicatessen, and there was a lot of things going on there, obviously. But so I started off that way too. Meeting the people. But as you become, your name gets in the town, especially the crew I was hanging around with. Some of our fights were reported in the newspapers, obviously. Everybody knew who I was, my family was, because basically both sides of my family were connected. On my mother's side, that stemmed all the way back towards the Al Capone days, believe it or not, and also on my father's side. So I was really surrounded by it. So as I started collecting money and doing things like that, meeting people, and they see that you're able to handle yourself. You got to remember, in this life, you're always being tested, and they always want to see where you're at, how you think, how you move,
Right.
what do you do in a certain situation. Shit, sometimes you can actually show them something, and they're like, "Hey, that was good the way you handled yourself." As a matter of fact, on my first bid that I did, I was with a guy around. His name was Raymond Patriarca. That was the Patriarca family in Philly, like Boston, in the area, like in that place. And very powerful guy, really nice guy, believe it or not. Got along good with him. And I'll tell you a story about that down the road about him and I in prison. But he saw me taking care of some of the older wise guys, and he said to me, he says, "I like the way you handle yourself, kid." He says, "I got my eye on you." And when you hear somebody in that magnitude say something like that to you, believe me, that really makes you feel good.
I'm sure it stuck with you.
It sticks. Well, look, I remember that was in the '90s.
Right.
Okay, it's now 2024. You know what I'm saying? So that's how good I remember it. And at that time, he had cancer and he beat it. Believe it or not. But
Wow.
yeah. Uh, and I'll wait.
Some
till
of
I
these
tell you
guys seem
stories.
invincible, huh?
Well, they do. I thought my father was invincible. You always think that, especially when you're a kid.
Right.
But you also, these guys, some of them, they are pretty tough. I mean, too, you know what I mean? And I met a lot of them over the years. But it was slow for me in a way because it wasn't so much that I really wanted that life, but I did like I like the camaraderie, they call it. I like the way you get together with a few guys. You just talk a little shit. You shoot the breeze about whatever.
Right.
I mean, you pretty much can talk about anything. And then
The respect and the money, I'm sure, wasn't bad either.
exactly. So there's a little show of respect, and they like the way you handle yourself if you respect them.
Right.
So there was a lot of stuff, but then I finally started getting my start later on in life. You know what I mean? It wasn't until later on I really started to move a little bit faster. You know.
And what types of things did your day to day look like when you started to really be heavy into it?
Well, before I really started getting connected, like I was supposed to be in the Genovese crime family because that's what my father was, a wise guy in the Genovese family.
Right.
He was a soldier in that family. But for some reason, I don't know how it happened, 100%, but I gravitated toward the Bonanno crime family, and I was comfortable there. But the day-to-day thing would be just like anything else. You got to go around collecting money. You got to talk to people. You got to set people straight. Could be something like in unions. It could be something, of course, who owed you money, obviously. It could be something, a place you're going to get involved in, whether it be a bar, a pizza parlor, some kind of business or whatsoever. There's so many different outlets there. It seems like your day never ends. You could get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you don't get home till 8 o'clock at night. It's a lot harder than just going to a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
Believe me.
And I'm sure every day was different. Every week was completely different, right?
Everything was different. You got some people give you a hard time. Some people knew not to give you a hard time. And then you had to be able to talk. You had to be able to handle yourself the right way. And that in itself is what brings you to a certain level. Because in the life, there's guys who are really tough and they use for certain things. There's other guys who got certain connections they use for certain things. There's guys that are really smart. They come up with all kinds of different schemes or make the older ones even better. Like years ago, I'll give you an example. You could we used to just loan money and then you just knew that you're either going to pay us back or you're going to get hurt. Well, the new thing about lending the money, or the smarter way about lending this money, is like, listen, I'll give you what you need. What do you need? Okay, you need 100,000, 200,000. Okay, is your house paid off? Because the bank can't pay you a loan, you can't get a refinancing, you can't do this or do that. Okay, let me look at the deed. You check it out, it's clean. Okay, what did you need? 100,000? That guy's house might be worth 300, 400,000. He misses the payment. Legally, on paper, that's your home.
Right.
Now you don't got to beat anybody up. You don't got to worry about going to jail, and now you just got all that money.
So their methods have shifted more towards, less conspicuous forms of.
Well, sure. As the times change, you got to change with the times as much as you can.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's nice to break somebody's leg or hurt them, punch them in the face, because some guys, some guys are just assholes. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Right.
You know, they try to get over on you. If a guy tells you they want to borrow $500, they're not gonna pay you back, and you're probably never gonna see the $500 anymore. That's why you walk away from those guys. You don't even give them anything. Or you give them $100 to help them out, tell them get out of here now. I helped you. Don't bother me ever or ask me again. And you got to wait cheap. But you know, people used to tell me, "Oh, we'll sign a promissory note. We'll do this, or that." And the promissory note is good, but then when you go to court, the judge says, "Yeah, they owe you the money. Do you have the money to pay, Mr. Barone?" "No." "Okay, sorry, Mr. Barone," and that's it. So it's that kind of situation. So you do change a little bit with the times, and that's where the younger generation can come in with technology, computers. They're all a lot of these guys are in the stock market. You know, all kinds of little angles wherever they can make a dollar. That's the most thing. It's
Right.
making money for the family.
Right. And so, how did some of these experiences as a mafia member shape your perspectives on crime, loyalty, trust? How did these experiences kind of shape who you are as a person?
It, a long time ago, excuse me. I wanted to finish my espresso.
I hear you.
It's good to be Italian. And mine had a little sambuca in it too, which was good. But because you're part of something, there is a part of you that feels loyalty to an organization. Unfortunately, sometimes that loyalty is not returned. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody signs up for certain things. A cop signs up to be a cop. He gets killed on the job. Hopefully, he has that insurance, and his wife collects double insurance because he died on the job instead of just at his house or some shit like that.
Right.
Same thing like with a fireman, and so you're expected to do certain things. But my father had told me, as a matter of fact, it was when Paul Castellano got killed. I was watching it on TV. It was the biggest news around. My father was upstairs shaving. I said, "Dad, come on down, quick." He come downstairs. We watched the news for about a couple of minutes, what they were saying, and he shook his head, and he said, "See, it's over." And now my father is was old school as well, and so he had told me back then, and that was, I think Paul got killed in the '80s, and so he had told me, he said, it's what killed the mafia. A lot of it was just greed. It's like anything else. It's like what you see what's going on in the government now. They don't really care about what they do for the people. They pretend. They put a veil. It's like a facade. They make it sound like they're doing something good, but they're pocketing the money. "Oh, we need a loan from the government for our town for X amount of millions of dollars." You think that every penny goes to the sidewalks and the bus stations and the this and the that? No.
Right.
The only thing that I know so far is Wounded Warriors. I think that was a good project, but there's a Tunnel for Towers thing that I think 100% of it goes to all of that. That guy is great. He's got great people on backing him up.
And what is that?
Tunnel for Towers is a thing for his brother died in the World Trade Center.
Right.
His brother was a fireman. I forget the guy's name. I just can't think of it this second. Wonderful man. Did a lot of things for the people who come home from wounded war vets, people who died in the line of battle, whether it be a cop or in war or a fireman. Took care of it, paid for their house. Do you know what it is to have a house paid off and the woman's got to do this all by herself now? And it's not only women. Some of the women died
Right.
on the job, you know? So I think that was one of the best, I think those are one of the best things that are 100%. But it's always just about the money. And if you're not generating money for the wise guys, basically, you're no good. So you could have a combination, like I was talking about before. Some guys are tough, some guys are this. Some guys I knew that were actually smart and tough at the same time. That was a really...
Some guys had it all.
Some guys had it all, exactly. And they really went far. Like my friend Dominic, he went far because he had both.
And this is Dominic.
Dominic Cicali, yeah, I am. Dominic is he's he does his own show, the Mafia Roundtable, which he graciously invited me to be the co-host of that show, which I'm very proud of and
It's a very good show. I've seen it.
You did see, yeah. You were telling me that earlier, yeah. And so he does he was one of those guys I was telling you about who had actually both. He had the brains and he had the brawn.
Right.
and he could execute either one of them like that.
We'd love to have him on sometime if
Dominic, yeah, I
he's
could.
interested,
Yeah, I think he would definitely come on. I would. All we'd have to do is ask him, and
Absolutely.
I'll do that for us. So, like I said, basically, the loyalty factor is good, but you seem to you see certain things, and don't forget too. There's some people you want to be loyal to, and some people not. Not everybody that is your friend, even as a gangster.
Right.
They could be a little jealous of you. Maybe you're earning more than they did. So it's that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, I grew up with a lot of these guys, and some of these guys were okay, and some of them you thought were okay are not as good as you thought. Also, like when I was in jail, I was with a guy, Jerry Chili, who passed away now too. He was a captain in the Bonanno family, and I got close with him because Jerry Chili was a gangster through and through, but he was it's almost hard to explain it. He was a gangster, but he wasn't a gangster. Like he was the type of guy that he didn't take orders that good.
I got you.
Yeah, but he didn't give a shit either. This guy, and he wasn't afraid. Yeah, just like my friend Dominic, same way. He followed the rules. He did what he had to do, but he was his own man, and that's what gravitated me to him as well. Besides some other things that we were close about.
Right.
There's those couple of guys like that. You don't mind listening to them. You don't mind them telling you a story. You want to listen. You don't mind doing something when they ask you to do it. Because basically they would do something. Dominic would never ask you to do something he wouldn't do himself.
Right.
And he's a man's man. Like you know what I'm saying. And you do it. You that's how you build that closeness in that life. I actually got close to him because of other things too. But that life, you really wanted to do things with him. Same thing with Chili. I was away on my second bid in MDC, and this is when the feds outed me out that I was an informant. And they did that purposely because they called up the Bureau of Prisons to put me in the hole, which is the box segregation, the shoe they call it. Okay,
Solitary confinement.
solitary confinement, but they call it the shoe, which is special housing unit.
Okay. Gotcha.
So what happens is they put me in a prison within a prison. Okay, they did that purposely to hurt me because I didn't want to cooperate with them anymore. Well, here's a guy like Jerry Chili. What I'm telling you, what he did was he called my then girlfriend, my fiance at that time. And he called his wife. He says, call the kid's girl up. Tell them they just took him to the hole. You see, that's how we stuck together.
That kind of respect and looking out for one another.
And that goes a long way in my book because.
And at that time, you didn't even know Chili that well, right?
Actually, I only got a chance to meet him because he did most. I think he probably spent half his lifetime.
And he went out of his way for you still.
And yeah, we got along. I mean, right off the bat. Matter of fact, there was somebody sent him a note about me. 2 people.
Right.
One of them was his ex-cellie that he was with, and another guy was Mikey Knows, Mancuso, sent him a letter about me. Mikey didn't know anything about me, but he said, don't trust the kid because Mike just plays the gangster really good. He's no gangster. But Chili still stuck by me. Okay, that's the kind of guy he was.
Right.
But anyway, that's a whole bunch of other stories. But you see the loyalty in their fade. It's not what you think it is. It looks good from the outside, and that's why a lot of times people growing up they think it's the TV. It's not the movies. It ain't TV. Just because you put on a fancy sweatsuit or you wear a nice watch doesn't make you a gangster.
Right.
Okay, that's a whole nother realm.
So, what was, if there was any, what was the real significant turning point or any moments that made you question your loyalty to the Mafia? And did it influence your decision to become an informant after 18 years with them?
Well, you see things change from when I was a kid. You notice the things. You see the betrayal within their own family. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they become a government witness or they become a rat or a cooperator. No, there's this betrayal with even in your own family. They do stupid things. They lie to you about stupid things. Like here, if you get caught selling drugs, which a lot of the guys didn't want to really deal with drugs. Some people didn't give a shit. As long as you handed them an envelope, they don't care they don't ask where you got the money. But if you got arrested, and then it's because of the drugs that you were selling, then they come to you, hey, what's the matter? Well, you didn't know this kid was selling drugs? She said, no, I thought he was doing other things. He just gave me the envelope. I didn't think he was doing that. I thought he was doing this or doing that. They cover themselves up like that. They don't even care. You're as good as your last envelope. Just like if you're a car salesman. Oh, you sold 5 cars this month. Way. And then next month comes along, you're nothing no more.
Right.
So it was that kind of stuff that kind of turned me off a little bit because where does it, what about this brothers? We're this, we're tight. And then, like I said, only within a few, all these wise guys that I knew, I was only tight with just a couple of guys. That's what kind of felt a little funny. The real turning point was when I was on my first bid. I was on gun possession, loan sharking charges, and I was about to do my time. I had a couple of decent lawyers.
Was this state prison you were in at this time?
Federal prison.
Federal prison.
Yeah, because the feds actually arrested me. The feds. They were setting up this one of the guys I was doing business with in the street. They had his brother wear a wire. He was supposed to meet his brother at this place in the Bronx. It was called the Thomas C. Bible Funeral Home. It was under the L's over there by Westchester Square. I don't even know if it's there anymore. But he was going to set up his own brother. But his brother supposedly got like wind or seen something was not right, and he drove away. I'm the jerk that went there. I was with the girl I was kind of seeing at that time. I'm in shorts, flip-flops. I wasn't expecting to see anybody. And there he was. He owed me some money, and I went there, and I tuned him up. And when he hit the ground and everything, there was a wire on it. I can't get the tapes down no more. But I tuned him up a little bit, gave him a nice beating, and the FBI arrested me right there.
Oh,
and they
wow.
had and that's how they got me the first bid. Otherwise, they tried so hard to get me with other things. I found out that the apartment I was living in, the girl that lived next door to me, they asked her, I found this out years later, that they asked her if they could use her apartment to bug my apartment.
Oh my gosh.
You see, so they really tried to get me. I was careful, but I didn't know that the FBI and this guy was wearing a wire.
They'll even go after your girlfriend and try to get her to turn you in?
Oh my, are you kidding? There is no ends to what they would do to get. Listen, you've heard the saying. This is their motto. It's probably a plaque on the wall somewhere in the FBI building. The end justifies the means. They don't care. They're dirty. Matter of fact, the FBI, in my opinion, and I'm going to tell you why I have this opinion. This way, I don't want people to think just because they outed me as a snitch, as a cooperator, as a rat, whatever you want to call me, it's fine. I'm going to tell you why. Okay? These are supposed to be the good guys. Yet, they outed me out because I didn't want to cooperate with them anymore. Just like they did with...
After 18 years of cooperation
Hold on.
and information and service to them.
Well, that's why they said to me that I tried to do this. They had me on my second bid, a murder for hire charge. Well, so you mean to tell me I worked 18 years and I have FBI reports, and I'll bring them in after I bring them on Dominic's show because I wanted to bring it on his show first. And I'm going to... How on board with the FBI mission I was on. I never had to wear a wire. Everything that I told them was accurate because I wasn't the only guy out there that was cooperating. And I never did lie to them. There was some things I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them everything. Okay? But they must have, I can't tell you how many things, people I identified that they didn't even know was even in the mafia. Certain people they wanted to know about, I brought stuff to them. I was on board with them the whole time. You mean tell me after 18 years in my late 40s, all of a sudden I decided to go rogue and want to kill somebody for money? It was actually a joke. And I have another piece of paper, proof of that. And I don't want to bring it here now. I'm going to do that later on, and I'll bring it on the show because, like I said, I'd like to help out. I'm glad you guys invited me. But even to prove that, and I'm going to show you another ounce of proof, okay, about the FBI. Not that I'm some disgruntled worker or I'm mad because they did it to me.
Right.
There was a guy, Willie Boy Johnson, was close with John Gotti. I think they were friends since they were kids. Okay, and I think Willie Boy got into some trouble with drugs or something like that. You guys could look it up. It'll be online. I forget the name of the AUSA, which is the Assistant U.S. Attorney, and I forgot exactly what he was arrested for. It's not my job to remember all of these things, but you guys could look it up out there in the YouTube world. He decided to help give information to John to the government, but he said, "I'm never going to testify against him." Well, sure enough, they said, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, what did they do? Now they wanted him to testify. So now he says no. Well, the AUSA, Assistant U.S. Attorney, outed him as a cooperator, a snitch. Okay? Guess what happened to Willie Boy? What a surprise. He was killed. You see, this is the thing. They actually had him murdered because he didn't help them. Wasn't enough for them.
Wow.
They want the blood. They want your bone marrow. They want it all. They'll suck you till you're dry.
It's terrible.
Well, listen. If you guys watch the news and you see what's going on with Donald Trump and all of this kind of stuff like this, you could like Donald Trump. You could be a Republican or not. I really don't care. You can see something when it's wrong. Okay, wrong is wrong, right is right, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, but the bottom line is to me, I should have just stayed with the mafia, and that would have been it. Okay, and if I did something wrong and I had to pay my price for either going to jail or if I did something really stupid and got killed over it, then it was my decision. But here it is, you think you're joining Team America and you're going to be, and these guys are the good guys, and they're actually worse because they hide behind the badge, behind the title of FBI. Just like some cops. There's a lot of cops that are decent cops, but there's a lot of them that they got a badge now and they think who the hell they are, and now they changed and they're this and they're that, because that's who they really were all along.
Seems like they operate more similarly to the mafia themselves than anything else.
They actually are the new mafia because they're better. They have unlimited resources. The mafia have only so many things they can go to. After a while, sooner or later, the money's going to run out. When's the money going to run out with the government? They're robbing everybody as it is anyway. But the reason why is because I was doing my first bid in the 90s. Like I said, I was taken to a room. I was in the bullpen. I was in MCC. They took me. As a matter of fact, I was with Vic Amuso, who is, I think he still might be running the show in the Lucchese family. And he was in Otisville with me for a very short time. That's where I first met him, actually. Never even met him in the street.
Otisville is the name of the prison.
Otisville is up in Middletown, New York, I think it is, or somewhere around there. I met him for a brief time. He was there very shortly because Otisville is almost like a maximum security.
Right.
But anyway, he was there for a very short time. And then he went to MCC. Then I happened to go there with MCC. As a matter of fact, I was with a guy, Mikey Shades. He almost had these same kind of glasses I got on now. And these are prescription, by the way. Okay, I'm not just looking cool. I got a C, too. So he and I went there, and Vic saw us come in. He greeted me. How you doing? I said, hey, Vic, I didn't know you were here, and all of this kind of stuff. And that's when Mikey Shades told me exactly who he really was and how fast he could have you whacked. And then I was like, really? Because he looked like an older guy, like just a really nice guy. And he was nice to me. He really was. He actually told me, and I said this story before, he said to me, look, the FBI are going to talk to you, he says, and this is what you tell them. He said, you sit there, you listen, you don't say nothing. He says, and you tell them, he says, listen, I love to help you, but I'm not even in a position to help myself. Now, I haven't forgot that in all these years, okay? I don't know how he knew, but, he was a connected guy. He might have had some guard that was on his payroll or somebody that just wanted to give him the inside information, what's going on there. I mean, he was that connected. He was the boss of the Lucchese family.
Right.
And we had a good conversation. He asked me, he says, Joey, he says, listen, he says, I'm going to give you the combination to my locker. He says, you go in there, you need anything, you help yourself. I said, no, thank you, Vic. I really appreciate that. But if I need anything, I'll ask you, because he was going back and forth to trial a lot and he wasn't going to be around much. But we had a little table in MCC, it was a table with 4 chairs. And he says, I don't want nobody, this is my table. He said, I don't want nobody at this table, Joey. I says, okay, Vic, don't worry, nobody will sit there. And I had to make sure nobody sat there. So, he told me about that, and that's when the FBI came in. My lawyer was there, and I told my attorney, I said, what the hell's going on? And he said, Joe, he says, so I asked for a couple of minutes. They gave me those few minutes, and he said, look, Joe, he says, they called me down here last night, told me I had to be here today. He says, and, what do you got to do? He says, I came. He says, let's see what they got to say. I mean, you're not doing nothing. I said, okay. So that's when they started saying, hey, this life is this and that. So I let it go in one and out the other until they showed me a stack of photos this high of my father, who I didn't see for a couple of years. He was on the lam, and it was pictures, dead photos. And I really don't want to get into it too much because it bothers me and it chokes me up. But
Right.
It was that turning point for me when my father, because they told me that the wise guys killed my father, okay? Now, they did know stuff, which I knew was true because, I would know, only me and my father would know, but they knew some things, not everything. And so I said, okay, so these guys, they know some shit. So maybe they were right about some wise guys killed my father. And I was like, why would they kill my father? He ran away to go on the lam to not face, of course, prison charges too. But hey, listen, I'd rather do 20 years in a foreign country than do 1 year in prison. If you don't have to, who cares?
So why did they kill him?
I don't know why they killed him.
To this day.
To this day, I never found out. After 18 years working undercover, trying to find out who got to my father, I never found out. I heard bits and pieces about stuff like I went to my Uncle Pat when I came home from my first bid. And he saw me, he was walking the dog, and I saw him, I pulled over. And he said that there was an autopsy done. Anyway, my uncle said things will come out. I don't even want to get into it because I got into it too many times. Yeah, thank you. And I just, it's tough when I think of it because I suffer now from a lot of stuff. I suffer from PTSD from being locked up in the hole. I suffer from nightmares. I have a lot of stuff. I don't want to get into it. But anyway, that was one of the things that was the turning coat. Changed my whole life.
Murder of your father.
It's funny how one moment can change your life forever, and for me, that moment was when I saw my father dead.
Wow.
There was another time, something else that I saw online recently. When I mean recently, maybe months ago, a year ago, whatever it may have been. Even a guy like I guess most viewers, I think, might have heard of Michael Francis. He was a captain in the Colombo family. Now, here's a guy, he's probably one of the biggest earners, maybe ever, I don't know, but he was probably one of the biggest earners on this gas business of his that he had. Now, I'm only going by his words. I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm not speaking for him. I wouldn't do that. But here's a guy who tells a story of all this money he was making, which I believe him. Okay, he might have been making $3 million, $8 million, I don't know how many millions of dollars a week he was making. With a scheme that he came up with, I think he had some Russian partners or whatever, Russian mafia guys too, but he basically put this whole thing together on his own. Kicking up all this money to not only just his family, he was helping out other people too and other families. They call him in on a sit down, okay? His words now. And they were giving him a hard time. Like, you're over here with us, and make sure you remember your loyalty where it is. The guy was loyal the whole time. He didn't do anything wrong. But they were afraid of him because, I think for two reasons. Because his father was very known. Almost, I think everybody
Sonny Francis.
Sonny Francis, yeah. He was a very well-known. Now, he probably could have been, maybe he even actually should have been the boss of the Colombo family. I think they were afraid that maybe him and his father would probably take it over. Because when you got money, you got power, and plus, he was a smart guy. I don't know if he's ever done any work as far as killing anybody. I would never know that because he'll never tell you, which is a smart move on him, just like Those are things you just don't ever talk about. Very
Right.
smart man. And I wouldn't want to know anyways, to be honest with you. But anyway, here's a guy. They tried to intimidate him. Here's a guy bringing him all kinds of money. So it ain't even the money. They just want to make sure it's crazy. What is that about? Now, I don't know if you guys. I think I might have mentioned it once on Mafia Roundtable about the Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone, which excellent. I hope he makes some more of them. It was really good. I kind of didn't like the way it ended. I don't know, and I think he's kind of getting more family orientated by what he says. He's been acting all these years, but in his movie, there was some good stuff in it, and one of the things that he said in the movie, he did 25 years, and that's what he was going to do because that's what he signed up for. But in the movie, you find out they tried to kill him while he was doing the 25 years because they thought he'd flip after 5 or 10 years or whatever. And then when he comes home, they ship him out to Oklahoma, and then they tell him he's got to kick $5,000 up a week. Meanwhile, the Lincoln Town Car picks him up from prison, takes him to some luxurious house in Long Island or wherever the hell it was. And these guys are doing all kinds of good money, earning this and that. You mean to tell me you couldn't put something away for this guy all these years? He lost his wife, didn't talk to his daughter, did his time like a man. And look, I understand this is what he signed up for. So make no mistake, he was going to do it. But you took everything from him. You don't think you could have. Sometimes you wonder why people flip.
And there's hundreds of guys that ended up like this, right?
Oh my God, there's some guys that they're out, they're in the street and they're broke.
Right.
And I'm not saying you gotta take care of the whole family and everything, but why don't you put something away? I think even Joe Messina had said we're gonna start putting things away for people who go away and stuff. I was with a guy, Luis Mena. He was a Spanish guy. Him and Tommy Karate, this guy Tommy Patera, he was in the Bonanno family. They were robbing drug dealers and stuff like that. I think he was killing them too, Tommy. But they were threatening this guy, Louis. You know what you better do and this and that. And he wasn't looking to flip or anything. But you left a guy with nothing. You threaten him on top of it. And then you wonder why the guy flips. Instead of saying, look, we know you're going to do the right thing. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you.
Where's the family aspect then?
Yeah. Where's the brothers? We're sticking together and all this shit. Come on, man. Look, I'm not saying, again, don't by any means, I'm not trying to justify things or whatever, but you took something from somebody and now you forgot about them. So the guy's wasting away in prison, even if he had to do 10 years or whatever it was, he was going to come out and still be a man. There's other guys still coming home that are still men after 10 years.
Right.
Okay, after 15 years, after 20 years, they're still guy, but they're coming home to nothing. You want to put them to work. You give them a little something. Help the guy out. Show him that we appreciate you. You know what I mean? Look, I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong, but when you did that to my father, fuck that. I'm not putting up with that. I'm sorry. That was my father. Now, whatever life he chose to live, that's good, but he still was my father. And that's the end of that. And I don't care what anybody thinks about it.
Absolutely.
I really don't. Really don't.
How did you approach the FBI with your original offer to become an informant, and what was their kind of reaction to it?
Well, like I said, in prison, they approached me. I did not go to the FBI. Right. I had no intentions of cooperating about anything or anyone. This was early 90s. I think it was 1991, maybe, 92, something like that. I forget exactly the years. They came to me, and when they showed me the pictures of my father, that's how it all happened. And then I didn't answer the questions. I didn't cooperate right away. I thought about it for a little while, and I was thinking, how am I going to find out who killed my father? That was my main purpose. I wanted to find out who killed my father. Now, I've had guys, I would have took a gun, I would have killed everybody. Okay, who am I killing?
Can't kill them all.
Who killed them? Yeah, I can't kill everybody. There's thousands of them. Who am I going to kill? I don't know who did it, and that's why I said, even to this day. I was talking to my handler after coming towards the end of the 18 years that we worked together, and his name was Vincent Pizzuti. I asked him to whatever happened, man. We never found out, and he never told me. I don't know if he ever got any wind of anything. I don't even know if it was a lie that they told me. Maybe Wise Guys didn't kill him. Maybe he died of a heart attack. I don't know to this day because I never did the autopsy. Matter of fact, let me not talk about the father thing right now. But look, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying I really don't give a fuck. And as far as I'm concerned, people could like me, people could hate me, but walk in my shoes. If you could do something different, God bless you. If you can't, it don't matter to me either way.
What were some of the risks associated, or some of the risks that you weighed when considering cooperating with them? You said you took them in and you thought about it. You didn't cooperate right away. What were some of the things on your mind that you were worried about?
My life.
Right.
I mean, you cooperate, you die. Basically, if they ever find out, you're dead. And you might not just die with the two in the back of the coconut. You might get tortured, depending on what they want to know or whatever, or what they were told to ask you.
Right.
I mean, there were times when I got called down. Matter of fact, I think I talked about this with Dominic and Dominic Sicali. He was my captain, and he called me, and I went, and I thought there was times I was never going to come back, but I still went, and I think now back to it.
Take your time.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I think there was a part of me that wanted to die too.
It's heavy. You two were close, you and him.
Yep. And I would have took the bullet from Dominic because I respected and loved him that much. I lost everything. Before my father died, which was in 1992, my mother died in 1988. So I had no more family as far as I was concerned, or anybody that I knew that really loved me, really cared for me. So I think that was a part of me that just didn't care. So I wanted to find out. Maybe there was a part of me that was going to get revenge. I don't know. I was a different person back then. I was a lot younger. A lot younger. And also, it was different. And what can I tell you? You could ask me another question, please.
Okay. Now, once you were officially an informant, what measures did you take to conceal your identity and to protect your safety while you were working undercover?
Well, there were. Yeah, I thought the FBI would have protected me. As you can see, that didn't happen. I had to play my part as a gangster to the T. Because these guys are very, very shrewd. You're not going to fool these people very easily. Make no mistake. They get a little bit of an inkling about you. It's curtains. But they're smart. And don't think they're not smart. And they can smell a coward. They can sense a weakness. That's why you're always put under a test. Matter of fact, I was put under a lot of tests. But I had to always, no matter whether I was in public or in private, I always had to pretend that I was the gangster, the man I was trying to be. I was portraying myself as a gangster. I always had to act like a gangster. I always had to act like this or that. I had to actually really live the role,
Right.
The hardest part is not so much professional, it's personal. Because you lie so much. is a line between of what you are or who you need to be for the role you're playing. I mean, it was almost like I was a spy,
Right.
in a way,
Yeah.
and I really couldn't get close to anybody. No girls. I don't have really no family. I have no children.
And that must have taken a toll on your mental health and
Sure, I
well-being
mean,
over time.
yeah, I would have liked a family. I would have loved to have a family. Some woman that loved me and I loved them, and have my children love me like I love them. But that the FBI came to me when I first come home and I was starting to work with them. Then they came to me. I forget what year it was. I think I got some reports on it, and they said that they can't. The only people that knew that I was cooperating at that time was the FBI. Okay, but now they had a rule that they couldn't conceal my identity. Matter of fact, I had a code name and everything. But I didn't trust them when they told me that, and so I did tell one person, and I thought he was a close friend of mine, and we did a lot of things together, and I thought he was a close friend of mine. I did tell a friend of mine from New Rochelle. His name is Peter Savinello. They call him Pazzi for short. He knew what I was doing the whole 18 years I was doing it. Because I told him when he come to visit me, him and another guy, Alex, came to visit me when I was in MCC, and I told him what might happen. I said they approached me, but then I told him when I came home that I finally decided to go that route.
Were you ever afraid that he might out you or divulge that information to anybody else?
No, because Pete was a type of dude that he was scared of his own shadow in his own way. I mean, he had a few fights here, nothing really much. Matter of fact, he came to me. Here's a guy. He knows I'm around all these gangsters. I introduced him to a few too. I introduced him to Dominic back in the days, and stuff like that too. So he was he liked to dabble in it a little bit, but he couldn't really be like me. So he was kind of scared, but he was like I'm trying to think of like how to exactly. He was funny, like in his own way, and stuff like that. But he actually used me. I think one of the girls, his ex girlfriend Lisa, was having a problem with some guy or whatever the case may be, and then I had the FBI Vinny go talk to her and everything, and then supposedly he tried to hit on her. She said to him or whatever it was. It was crazy. Lisa Piro, nice kid, nice girl. There was something going on. I forget the whole scenario, but he tried to set up. He wanted me to set up people. I said, Pete, I'm not doing that. I'm not setting up friends that we know. He wanted me to set up a guy named Robert Cardi. I don't know why, but
And so you never set anybody up that they
No.
asked you to?
nope.
Never testified against anybody on the stand?
I never went to the stand. I never testified against anybody. I never wore a wire. I never set anybody up. I never put anybody in a position to be set up. I never did any of that. I just gave information,
You just wanted to find out who killed your dad.
and that was the most main important part.
I
But the
understand.
FBI did not want to protect me. They say they do, but how are you going to protect me? I mean, in my FBI reports, it says how I feared for my life in there. I mean, I'm hanging around with people who will kill me in a second.
Right.
So it's like these are the real deal. This is not like no TV land. This is your life. This is the real thing. Not like, oh, guy got shot and killed. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, no, this is a big deal. And no, it's not like that. Okay, but yeah, he knew all along. And matter of fact, after I got arrested the second time, he told people he never knew, and he was so scared. There was a guy, my friend at the time, Mike Donato. He asked me to antagonize him or whatever, and he did, but he never got. Mike wanted to fight him. He didn't want to show up. I was going to be there to kind of be right there, so this way he would have felt more comfortable. But then Mike calls me up. My friend Mike Donato calls me up and says, Joe, he says, you're never going to believe this. I said, what happened? I'm thinking, I haven't heard from Mike and him. We didn't talk every day or we didn't talk every month, But he said to me, he says, you're never going to believe this, but Pete, your friend, put an order of protection out against me. I went, what? Yeah. Mike caught him by Mayflower Cleaners in New Rochelle, New York, on North Avenue, and he says, "Pete, you want to talk stupid about me now? Come here, let me talk to you." He had to chase him around the car. I said, "But you're hanging around with me, Pete. You can't do this because people are going to look at me." Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, there was a kid, Junior Aurelio. This guy, he was a Puerto Rican kid, nice kid, but he was always like an Italian kid, good-looking kid, nice guy. He imitated Pete running around the car. Laugh our ass off. Let me tell you something. It was funny as shit. But I said, "Pete, what's wrong with you? You can't do this. Because now I hang around with you, and people are going to say this guy's hanging around with a rat."
Right. Right.
Don't
Right.
go to the police. Take your beating like a man. What, you think I never got beat up before? You think I won every fight? I'm the toughest guy in the world? It's ridiculous.
Was there any ever close calls within your time as an informant, where times where you came very close or thought you came close to getting caught or outed?
Oh man, like I told you, those late night meetings. I mean, I described one of them when Dominic actually came and told me to meet him in 15 minutes. I said, "Could I have 20?" He says, "Okay." It was one of his tests.
What time of night was this?
It was early. It was like, I guess maybe around 9 o'clock at night or something like that. Maybe so it was kind of early. You know what I mean? But I was pretty much home, relaxing. I wasn't going to do nothing, and I get the call to meet him at his cousin's house. So I go into the place, and she's like, "What's going on?" I mean, and I was like, "I don't know." So he came in. He was kind of cold to me. He came in with his dad, and it was just kind of weird because it was cold, and we're driving. He pulls up with the I think he had an Acura at the time, it was a white one, and he had the baby seat in the back. And I think it was like funny. I sat in the back seat. I said, "Well, I got him in the back seat." I said, "This don't look bad. I'm not in the front seat, so I don't have to keep sitting behind me going like this, thinking."
So if they're gonna
gonna
whack
get me?
you, they get you in the front seat. So that
Well,
you
it's
can't
always a little bit easier
Okay.
because the guy sitting in the back sits right behind you. It's pretty easy. You know what I'm saying? You don't see him pulling out the gun.
I gotcha.
So he's driving fast, going, and we're doing like 80 in the 35 mile zone. I mean,
my God.
And he's taunting me, and he goes, "Hey, what's Joe? You don't know where we're going, eh?" And he's like fucking around with me in there.
Trying to test you and just keep
Want
you
to see?
honest.
Yeah, yeah. But Dominic was shrewd. He's smart like that. But he broke my balls too. He didn't suspect me of anything. But if I would have, looked scared of something, then
Well, if he really
might have. But
right.
yeah, but
really suspected you anything,
yeah.
then you would have known.
but he was that's the kind of guy he was. He was kind of cool like that. He did I mean, I got stories with him, and we'll tell them down with his show, and maybe when he comes on,
Right.
how was the stuff that he found out about me and stuff. Yeah, he's one of those guys that. As a matter of fact, he actually obviously from his show, he cooperated too. But I'm just glad I got back with him. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it made me feel a lot better.
So how did you mentioned that being an informant and living that double life is not as so much hard on the professional end, but more so on the personal end. So how did being an informant sort of affect your personal relationships, your life, and various in these other ways?
Well, here it is, 20 years later. I think my last bid, I won my court case. I went to trial, proved the FBI wrong in 2010. But yet, every 7 days out of a week, I'm having about maybe 3 nightmares a week.
Oh wow,
Might not seem like a lot to somebody, but it's a lot to me.
that's a lot.
I don't like what I did. I don't like about my betrayal from the FBI because, listen, there were things, some people, there's certain levels of betrayal, and everybody knows it. I'm sure everybody in their life got stabbed in the back by somebody. There was another line, I wrote it down somewhere. It's not the knife that kills you. It's when you turn around and find out who's holding the knife that's really gets you.
Yeah.
And if my girl cheated on one of my friends or something like that, it sucks. It's messed up. But I know I don't have to ever have that guy in my life anymore, that girl in my life anymore. Thank God. And that you can kind of get over. It takes a little while, but you get over it. You learn.
Right.
But what the FBI did was they really lied. They act like they're somebody good, like they're doing some good things for the country. And don't get me wrong, they find out things, but that doesn't make them good because you could bug a phone and you find out this guy's a terrorist. Okay, so you arrest him. Does that make you a hero? I don't know. That should, I mean, what is it? You're sneaking around, you're doing things illegal. And one of the things that they had asked me, and I'll speak about the illegal thing, they said to me, I had to sign a piece of paper every 3 months is sort of like an authorization to engage in the criminal activities that I was doing. Okay, so what happens if the guy didn't meet me every 3 months? He couldn't meet me till maybe 4 months or 3.5 months. So do I stop hanging around all the guys I'm hanging around with and doing what I'm normally doing and say, oh, I can't come out today, I'm sick, I got a cold because I don't have authorization?
No, that's going to raise questions.
Exactly. They have so many stupid things. They say you're not supposed to engage in anything. Well, if I'm going to bar with my friends and my friends get into a fight, I'm supposed to sit here or pretend I was in the bedroom, I didn't hear it. Give me a break. That's why I think the FBI hated me a little bit too. I think they were envious of me because I was able to do these things that they really were like, damn, And don't forget too, we dressed better, we had better food, we had nicer cars, we had pretty women. I think they were a little jealous, to be honest with you. But going back to what was the question again? About like what it did to me about my nightmares and stuff like that. What it did
How
to
did
me
it
on a
affect your
personal
personal
level.
relationships? How did it affect you on a personal level?
If
Yeah.
it messed me up, I'm still messed up from it. And a matter of fact, there's a guy Joe Pistone. He was in the Donnie Brasco movie, and there's been interviews with him. But before he started doing interviews, and I guess when the movie came out, my handler, Vinny Pizzuti, he said, I met him. He said he still thinks he's a gangster. Now, he was undercover for, what, 6 years?
And you're saying this is who the movie Donnie Brasco is based off of?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. That's the one where Johnny Depp and Al Pacino played in,
Right.
and a few other good movie stars, too.
It was a good movie.
Yeah. And so he still acts like he's a gangster. Okay, and he was only involved with, I think it was like 6 years, and he wrote in his book, there's things that he's done in that life that he's never going to tell or divulge. Now, why is it okay for him to do what he did and get away with this, and they all praise him, and me, I'm no good, for 18 years, okay? And I risked my life for 18 years. Even Vinny said on the stand, when my attorney questioned him, he says, was his life ever in danger? He says, all the time. Another time he said, what is it with the FBI? I guess I don't know who was asking the question. I don't know if it was my attorney or not. He goes, well, they don't really kill people anymore like they used to. That was an out and out lie. That was an out and out lie. I'm going to tell you what I had told. I think I was on the Jordan Harbinger show. I think I might even said this on the show co-host of the show I'm co-hosted with Mafia Roundtable with Dominic. The FBI gave me permission to kill a wise guy. They didn't say kill him, Joe, get him. No, they didn't. They don't do that. Okay, just like anything else. If I'm asked to do a piece of work, you don't have to tell me I have to kill the guy and shoot him. We know what you're talking about. The FBI, I told them that I might have to do a piece of work, and they said, well, look, Joe, you got to do what you have to do to protect yourself because I wasn't gonna have to. I can't go alone to kill the guy.
So in other words, they gave you the green light.
That's right.
If you feel like your life is threatened.
Well, yeah, because they said the first thing that you do all the time, the number one thing is protect your identity. And that's it. They never knew what I told my friend Pete. Well, he ain't my friend no more. But my friend Pete, okay, they never knew it. I wouldn't tell them that. I just thought that if God forbid anything happened to me, maybe my friend Pete would help me. But they told me straight out like this, Joe, because I can't go by myself to kill somebody. Usually it's me and somebody else, okay? And even if, like, I think Dominic had said it on the air too on one of the podcasts with him, he wanted to do it. I still would have had to shoot him maybe myself anyway, okay? Maybe, I don't know. But the bottom line is that was a big thing for me. And I would have had to do it because if I didn't shoot him, then I get shot and killed.
Right.
So then the FBI guy, Vinny, tells me, he goes, Joe, but make sure you tell us right away so we can protect you. Protect me? Why are you going to protect me from what? And he not only said this to me when it was one-on-one, when I first told him about it, there was a guy that he introduced me to, that because Vinny was going to get ready to retire. So he introduced me to another agent, Mike Trombetta. He even said it, we even talked about it in front of Mike Trombetta. And Vinny was telling him all these things, and Mike Trombetta was like listening to him, and he says, yeah, you got to protect yourself like that. All right. But Mike was like, well, how can we protect him? I could see in his eyes what he was doing. His body movements weren't equaling to what was going on, what Vinny was saying.
Right.
So I was going to get screwed no matter how you look at it, okay? But you know something? It is what it is. But they gave me permission. Look, there was another guy. They called him the Grim Reaper was his nickname. I don't know if anybody ever called that to his face. His name was Greg Scarpa. Now, Greg Scarpa was somebody you don't want to fool around with, okay? He was a tough guy, real tough guy. And they actually sent him out to this thing in, I guess it was a Mississippi burning thing or whatever. I think he almost killed a guy or was going to kill a guy or something like that. He found out where the bodies were buried or some odd stuff like that. They gave him permission to do that. Nothing ever happened to him. He still worked undercover and did his thing. He was working for the wise guys, making tons of money, and the FBI was giving him money too. Okay? They had another guy that cooperated against John Gotti Jr. I forget his name too. I don't know if his name was Pete or something or whatever. I think he was a stockbroker. They were giving him $2,500 a week.
Jeez.
Okay? Yeah. Now, I didn't realize this. The FBI had $100,000. I didn't know this at the time because I never asked them for money. I never asked for any money. And going back now, maybe I should have, but they had $100,000 a year put aside for me. Okay? And they gave me money. They did. They gave me money when I told them I spent a certain amount of money and this and that. I didn't know that, and Dominic, we made a joke at it. He said, you should have told him I spent $50,000 in the strip club or something. He says, he's my guy. I gotta spend the money, and I should have said that, but I wasn't thinking anything like that. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm an angel or a saint or anything, but I was really still trying to get close to find out what happened to my father.
Right. So after leaving behind your mafia connections and transitioning to a new life post-informant, post-mafia, was it hard readjusting to like a completely new way of living?
Something, it's extremely hard. There are still some things I do out of habit, being in that life as a wise guy. And then on top of it, I have to deal with the fact that I was an informant. I cooperated. I told on people. A rat, however you want to say it.
I'm sure that affected your relationships with some of your former friends and associates as well, right?
A lot of my friends were afraid to hang around with me because they feared I was going to get retaliation for what I did. People were disappointed to find out what happened.
Right.
Okay, because
without even fully knowing the circumstances.
Of course not. There was a lot of guys out there. I won't name their names to this day because they're still out there, and some of them are civilians that I never cooperated on. I never said anything to. That they were waiting for a knock on the door when they found out I cooperated, and nothing ever happened to them. And I bumped into a few of them when I came home. And I talked to this one guy, I'm not going to say his name, and he says, Joe, you protected me. I says, you didn't say anything bad about me? He says, absolutely not, Joe. You protected me. I don't even want to tell you who I was with that also overheard him say that, because I don't want that person to get a question later on if that's the case. I did protect them. I protected a lot of my friends, okay, because they were my friends. I knew them. I grew up with them. A lot of the wise guys I met, I never knew them, okay? I didn't know them. And I didn't care about that life anymore. I really didn't. But there was a lot of people that were disappointed. I mean, look, I had girls come to me that were getting beat up by their husbands or boyfriends. I had guys coming up to me that they broke up with their girlfriends, or they wanted their wife followed because they knew that she was cheating on them behind their back or whatever. I had people come to me. It was like they just liked talking to me, just like my co-defendant at the time, Tony Polero, who'd passed away. He wanted me to kill his partner. This is the reason why I was arrested. He wanted me to kill his partner. He talked to me about it. Did he really mean it? No. This is going to go back to the beginning. I said I have proof of this. Tony Polero wanted me to kill a guy. His name was Cliff. forget his last name. I went to school with him. We went to school since junior high school. I knew him. He was actually his partner in the business. I brought it to my FBI handler, and he says, Joe, if he don't give you any money, and I have paperwork to prove it is, if he doesn't bring any money, it's not for real. So I knew it wasn't for real. He didn't bring me any money. I asked him for 50,000. He didn't come up with it. I knew he was just doing it like I forget what the word they call it, profiling, whatever. It's like he just was
Fishing.
he just was he liked to talk to me and pretend he was going to do something
Yeah,
because I was who I was, and they think that's all the talk you want to hear. That's not true. We don't always want to hear about a score or a scam. We like people for who they regularly are. You know what I'm saying? That,
Right.
So this is the kind of thing that was going on. That's why when I got this other thing where Tony was talking about me having this guy killed, I knew it was all bullshit. And that's why I didn't even mention it to the FBI. Who cares? It was never going on anywhere. I sent the guy to look at the house, like they said. Yeah, it did. Took a few pictures. I said, Tony, it can't be done, and that was it. And we left it at that. It was done. But the FBI used this other guy who was another guy who corroborated, another rat, and he wore a wire on me. As my way I was in the street, I talked to him and I said, yeah, we'll still do it. And I should have just told him, it's dead. You told me it was dead months ago. It's dead now. Leave it alone. I gave him $1,000 for going up there because it was nice to have people in the street that always thought that I could generate money. I could make a guy do it. Even look, how good is it getting $1,000 for taking a ride up an hour away or wherever the guy lived? Took a few pictures and came back. Ooh, that's nice payday, isn't it? Okay, who wouldn't want to do that? And then nothing ever happened. I never did anything like that. He actually testified against me. 90% of his testimony was accurate. It was all for me. Okay? He even testified the fact that this other guy wanted to rob a house and there was money in it. And he said it. I told him not to do it. He did it anyway because somebody else told him to do it, the connection that I had with him in the very early beginning. But I told him not to do it because that's not who I was. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was keeping my appearance up. That's all I was doing. I was keeping my appearance up. And that's what I did for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had a fight in a bar or something and there was a few times that I did have to do things or whatever, I went. And I was ready to go full speed ahead. Like we talked about a story, Dominic and I, about going down and finding this kid Hippie. Now, that was it. He was getting either beat up, tuned up, whatever we're going to do to him, that was it. I was on board 100%, nothing I could do. I had to go. And and that was that.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't like, but I tried to stay away from things like that.
Looking back, do you have any regrets about your involvement with the mafia or your decision to cooperate with the FBI or both? Which one do you regret more?
I think I regret the FBI more than the mafia.
If you could go back and never be involved with the mafia at all, would you?
No, I wouldn't be involved with the mafia either. I would have just become a postman like I was going to be and just live a normal life.
Wow.
Because, not to say that I didn't meet some and have some good times and things like that. No, it wasn't worth it. Okay, I never really was a tough guy. Oh yeah, I had my fights. I could handle myself okay and good like that. I'm not saying I'm the toughest guy with all of that shit, but I'm not going to take shit from anybody. That's for sure. Win or lose, but listen. Like I said, I would have just been a postman. I would have a nice wife and kids. My mother and father still would have been alive. They would have been happy when they died and knowing that their son was okay. Okay, and that would have been the end of it. And that's would have been a nice life. I had enough history in my family to do all the bragging and talking about shit about what my uncles and father was involved in and grandfathers. That would have been fine. Could have had some nice stories about it and just left it at that, because in the end, as you get older, all you have left is your stories anyways.
Right.
Just like I got it. I can't tell you how many stories. Matter of fact, even we talked about that too. So I won't say anything because my first loyalty is to, of course, my co-host as the Mafia Roundtable. But there's so many small stories nobody's ever even heard yet. And they're not only true, but they're going to be so accurate. It'd be like, holy shit, But my point is I wouldn't have been involved with the Mafia at all. But if I had a choice between the Mafia and the FBI, I would have never went with the FBI. I would have just did my time and then find out maybe a different way if I could have to find out who killed my father,
Right.
and hopefully it would have worked.
But your emotion and your, the pure sadness and rage that you felt at that time, it wasn't even you felt like you had to go with the FBI. It was your only option.
Yeah, because listen, anybody can ever tell you. Nobody's going to tell you who killed your father. Who's going to tell you that? Okay, who's going to say, listen, we found out this and that? It's very hard to get that information. So I figured the FBI was the best bet for me at that time.
Right.
You know, like I said, I don't care. Once that happened to me, it changed my whole life, and
Yeah.
not for the better. Maybe a friend of mine, she had told me that maybe it was meant that I never did find out about who killed my father. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's the way it went. Maybe this is the way I'm going to be judged. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. All I know is that I dealt with the information I had with at the time, and I did what I did at the time.
Right.
Right, wrong, indifferent. I really don't care. I don't care who agrees with me or disagrees with me. You know, but to answer your question, I would have never ever go with the FBI because I think they're actually, at least when you're a gangster, you try to keep a low profile because it's supposed to be a secret society, but
Right.
everybody still knows. I mean, not everybody's stupid. I mean, no matter where I go, still to this day, people think I'm a gangster. Some people thought I was a cop, believe it or not. But it's listen. I would have never went with the FBI, and I know I'm not like what most people would think as a real rat. I wasn't scared. I met.
Well, you never took the stand against anybody.
Never took the stand against anybody. Never even wore a wire. I wore a wire only once on my co-defendant because when they asked me to at that time to try to set him up to talk about the murder for hire that he wanted to do, I knew I was very proud to wear the wire because I knew that it was a dead issue. So and they proved it on the wire. That's why I wore it.
Right.
Because I knew that it would come to fruition the truth about that. He didn't even know what I was talking about anymore.
Right.
And that's why I did it and proved the FBI wrong again.
And wearing that wire didn't put anybody in jail.
No.
It cleared your name.
And cleared his name too. That's
cleared
correct.
his name too. Right.
Cleared us up both. Yep.
So we're coming up on our last question here, Joe. So
Okay.
lastly, if you were face to face with a young Joe Barone right now, what's one thing you'd like to say to him?
That's a hell of a question. There's so many things I'd love to tell him. I'd love to sit down and talk to him.
If you could pick just one thing to say, what would you say?
It's better to be judged for who you are than to be judged for who you're not. To thine own self be true. Just be you, be yourself, be what's right for you, be you, be a man, but be true to yourself.
Absolutely.
That's what I would tell him.
Well, I think that's a great way to end this. Listen, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is our first interview, first podcast. We wanted to get a chance to introduce Joe, let you guys know what he's all about, give him a real official interview. Thank you so much for coming on today, and we're looking forward to many more podcasts in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, and good luck in the future with everything.
Absolutely.